got an extra special treat for you, super special. Got a gentleman, a guest speaker today, Mr. Randy Hughes. He's going to be speaking on the subject of land trust, which is one of the top, I get a lot of questions about. I get a lot of questions about this with regards to privacy and et cetera. And so basically invited in the best. Randy's known as Mr. Land Trust, and when you get into the presentation here and learn what Randy has to say, you're quickly going to see why he's not called Mr. Land Trust, because he is the go-to guy for the land trust. And this is a topic I want you to make sure you got lots of paper. We're taking lots of notes today, because this is, matter of fact, not only is Randy going to be showing you how to protect your privacy through land trust, but he's going to show you how to make more money for a deal using these tools which you need to be using in all of your transactions. So one thing I need to do real quick, I need to give you the background on Randy, and just kind of really let you appreciate his credentials. The man's been a real estate investor entrepreneur since 1969. Probably hate to admit that, but 1969. Many of you probably weren't even born in 1969. So he's purchased over 200 houses during his real estate career. He's lived a life of having nothing, and he's never going to let that happen again. His primary goal now in life is to teach others how to break the cycle of poverty. Randy teaches real estate investment courses across the United States. We were just talking before the call about all the places he's been teaching, and he's written privacy and asset protection books as well as home study courses. His most popular publications are his Land Trust Made Simple home study course and his live seminars. Randy has written extensively for both local and national real estate publications. He's taught real estate classes at the University of Illinois. I guess we ought to call him Professor Randy Hughes. He's also taught at besides Illinois, Parkland College and Elgin Community College. He's been a continuing education instructor for the Illinois Association of Realtors for 20 years in teaching realtors. He also speaks to real estate investment clubs across the country about all the benefits of using land trust for privacy, asset protection, and profit, which is one point I'm going to emphasize today. So he teaches classes on how to protect your assets and how to become more private with your personal life. He also teaches land trust law. He authors the only land trust newsletter and blog in the country, and he's the founder of the Land Trust University, and he's an expert author for II Club and Easy Articles blog. So he's also authored a great free report on all the uses of land trust. Absolutely has the impeccable credentials, lots of experience, so prepared to take lots of notes when Randy speaks. And with that, I want to get out of the way. But Randy, welcome to today's webinar.
Thank you, Lance. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate you inviting me to speak to all your folks today. And I think we probably ought to take it away. Does it sound all right, Lance?
Yes, coming in good. Sounds real good. I want to mute. I'll be here just to make sure you got that's quality audio.
Yeah, and then maybe you can come back in when we have some questions towards the end, okay?
Exactly. Perfect.
All right. Well, I do want to let everybody know that, as Lance has said, it would be very valuable for you if you get a pen and paper. And I also ask you to turn off your phone and your email and all the other electronic devices that we all use these days. Try not to multitask while we're doing this, because I want you to really get the gist of what I'm teaching you today. And the best way to do that is to pay attention to the screen and the slides I'm going to be going through. The purpose of my presentation is to teach you about a revocable land trust that we use for privacy, asset protection, and higher profits, as Lance mentioned. We'll get into all those details here today on this presentation. You can buy, you can hold, and you can flip properties using land trust. You can do pretty much everything that you're already doing, but be able to do it in a more private, in a more asset protection fashion than if you take title to these properties in your personal name. or even if you're taking them directly into your LLC or corporation, that's not such a good idea either, and I'll explain that in detail as well. But my point here is after a long time, decades in this business and decades of using land trusts, I know the benefits to us as streetwise investors like you and I are, and I want to teach you how to create your own trust so you can do it not only for privacy and asset protection, but to do it without any cost. So you're just about going to discover a whole bunch of benefits to using these land trusts. But I should start by saying there are a lot of misconceptions about land trusts, and I want to clear up as many of those misconceptions on the call today as I can. You probably have either heard about a land trust or talked to somebody about land trusts and maybe had some difficulty finding somebody who can discuss it intelligently because most attorneys don't understand land trusts and most financial advisors don't understand land trusts. And so it's kind of a good news, bad news thing, because the good news is once you learn how to create these trusts and use them in your business, not many people know what you're doing. And that's a great thing from an asset protection standpoint, is to operate at the trust level, not at your personal name level. So a land trust isn't very complicated. It's just a few pieces of paper. Pretty much anybody can use a land trust. It doesn't have to be a real estate investor. It can be somebody just buying the whole title of their own personal residence. But we're going to talk also about how we can link the land trust with other entities for stronger asset protection. And then I'm going to end up today on this presentation with 12 reasons why you should be using a land trust. There are actually a lot more reasons. I wrote a book called 50 Reasons Using Land Trust, and I'd be glad to supply that to you for free. But we're going to cover the 12 most important ones here today. Now, just a little bit of background, a little bit further background than what Lance had told you about myself. I won't spend more than probably 2 minutes on this, but I just thought you ought to know where I came from and how I got to this point in life. This is a house I grew up in. It cost my parents $4,200. That's $4,200. And here's a picture of me in college. So for those of you who like plaid, you probably like this picture. But I started investing in college, and it was right after I got married. Right after college, I got married, but I started buying houses while I was in college. If I remember right, I think it was a junior when I bought my first rental house. I was still living at home, didn't even own my own personal residence, but bought a small rental house. And here's a picture of it. Now, it looks a lot better today than it did when I bought it because somebody has subsequently purchased it and put on siding and new windows and fixed it up. But that's it. I paid $9,200 for that house in 1969, rented it to 4 college students, put 2 in each bedroom. It was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, and it cash flowed. And so what I've done since then, as Lance said, I'm a house guy. I make my living in the house business. And I want to show you a few of the properties that I control. I don't own, but I control through trusts. And that, over the years, has been good to my family. Here's a picture of us going out to celebrate a real estate deal. No, that's not mine yet. I did rent it for the evening, but they're a lot of fun to rent. And the point here, the reason why I put the slide here is that if you don't concentrate as you're building your estate on protecting your estate, you won't get to the point where you can enjoy the fruits of your labor. I could sit here for 2 hours and tell you story after story about real estate investors that called me and told me their sad story about how they've lost their assets to frivolous lawsuits and all kinds of crazy things. So I want to show you how to strategically build and protect your wealth using trust. As Lance mentioned, I do have a little bit of history, but the reason why I want to bring the history of my investing and learning is that I didn't start out on the top of the pile. I was not born to wealth, that's for sure. Like some people, like maybe Donald Trump, those guys that started out with 20 million seed money. But my father was an alcoholic who deserted our family when I was 16 years old. Left my mother to raise 4 children on her first wages. And I actually started out with a negative net worth. But I have been able to learn and teach over the years and dig myself out of that hole that I started in life. So I think it's important because a lot of you on the call probably have similar circumstances. And again, I want to teach you not only how to build wealth, but to protect wealth as you build it. So let's get started. What is a land trust? Just a few pieces of paper. You start with a trust agreement and a deed in trust. That's all it takes to create your first land trust. Now, those deeds and trust agreements do require some people on there, so your parties involved in these transactions are going to be a trustee and a beneficiary. Now, the trustee and beneficiary will sign the trust agreement, but the key to all of this is the trust agreement does not get recorded anywhere on the planet. So that means it's a private document that goes in your files only, and nobody knows what the agreement is between you and the trustee. The deed in trust is very familiar to all of you on the call. You're probably dealing with deeds all the time in your business. But the deed in trust to get into a land trust is a little bit different, has a little bit different language, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So you just need a trustee and a beneficiary. Cost to create a land trust? Nothing. It is free. That doesn't cost any registration fees, no government fees, no state fees, no federal fees, no registration. You don't have to have a registered agent. There's no cost in creating a land trust. And that is extremely important when you think about my personal advice to you, and that is that you should put each property that you buy into its own separate land trust. Just think about this from a logical standpoint, because I know a lot of people are given advice to put all their property into 1 or 2 or 3 LLCs or a corporation. And didn't Grandma teach us that that you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket? It just makes sense to not infect one property with another property's problems by holding title in the same entity. So what I want you to do is to learn how to create these trusts, and then each property you acquire, you put into a separate trust. And that way each one is insulated from the other. Now, for you history buffs, I'll just throw this up real quick. Land trusts have been used for a long, long, long time, over 100 years in the United States, but they are legal, and they are legal in your state, regardless of what somebody is telling you, and you can create a land trust in your state. Let's talk about what we can put into these trusts. As I mentioned earlier, a land trust is designed specifically for real estate related assets. And so you wouldn't want to put a car or a boat or a motorcycle in a land trust, but you would want to put these things that I'm putting up on the screen. These are all real estate or real estate related options, real estate related assets, like an option on real estate or a contract for real estate. So all interest in real estate can be put into a land trust, and each one of those assets should go in a separate land trust. I had a guy call me the other day, and he was wanting to get a hold of my home study course, And I said, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm going to form 1,500 land trusts. I said, wow, what are you going to do? What are you going to put into these trusts? He said, well, I've got a bunch of oil and gas leases, and some of these are winners and some of them are losers, and I don't want to put them all in one entity. I want to separate them all into individual trusts. So that's a smart and practical use for a land trust. Let's talk about who can create these trusts, because they're really very easy to create and very amenable to pretty much anybody or anything creating them. So you don't have to just be a person to create a land trust. You can be an entity. Your LLC could form a land trust. If you're in a partnership with somebody, that partnership could form a land trust to hold the real estate that's owned by the partnership. So anyone and everyone can form a land trust. You don't have to have a law license. You don't have to be a lawyer to form a land trust for yourself. And that's very, very important here, because if you can find somebody that has the training that will form these trusts for you, they're going to charge you anywhere from $500 to $1,500 per trust. And if you take my advice of putting each property into a separate trust, that's going to get expensive. So I think it's very important that you learn how to do this yourself, not only to save you money, but so you can do it exactly the way you want it done, and then you can make changes after the fact if you want to. You can always amend the land trust, so you don't have to create the world's best land trust on the very first trust you create. I suggest just go ahead and create one, get it going, and then if you think of something down the road that you want to put in that trust, you want to change the wording of the trust, you can amend the land trust very, very easily. So you may be thinking, why do I need a land trust? Well, the answer is they're great at holding title and linking together with other asset protection entities like LLCs, corporations, and other types of trusts. And they're also great at helping you make larger profits when you do sell property. We'll talk about that in a minute here. So, why should you use land trust? Well, number one, they're very easy to form. You just put the Word documents on your computer, you fill in the blanks, and you hit print, and you're off and creating land trusts, as many as you want, with no restriction. As I mentioned, we can make more money with a land trust when we're selling property on a contract. As you all know out there, if you're selling property for cash, that's one price. If you're going to sell property and provide finance, in other words, on a contract basis, then you're going to charge a higher price because you're the bank and you're taking more risk. The problem there is what happens if the buyer defaults. And if you do it the conventional way and don't use a trust and your buyer defaults, you're going to have to foreclose. If you use a land trust, you'll sell the beneficial interest in the land trust on a contract basis. And if the buyer defaults, you'll repossess, you will not foreclose. And that one concept alone will save you thousands and thousands of dollars in legal fees and a year of your life of aggravation going through foreclosure. So that's a really, really good way of making more money and being safer at making more money using a land trust. So you can do this yourself. All you need are the forms and a little bit of education, and that's what I'm here to provide, and you're off and running. This guy is a student. His name's Wesley. He's a student and a friend of mine who took my home study course, and he's a full-time real estate investor, has been for the last 10 or 15 years. And he studied my home study course, and here's what he had to say after taking the course. So as you can tell, Wesley finds my system easy to use, and he puts all his properties into a land trust now that he's taken my class and got the forms and the knowledge and the know-how, and he wouldn't buy real estate and hold title in his name. You couldn't give him a piece of real estate anymore because he understands the risk involved in holding title in your name. And especially if you're working with a partner like he was. You certainly don't want to go on the deed with anybody else. No partner, not even your spouse. Because when you go on a deed with somebody else, that effectively makes you general partners. And the liability extends to your general partner on what he does, and what he does is going to affect the title of your property. So it's just not smart to go on the title by yourself, or certainly not smart to go on with other people. It can lead to disaster for you. So I'd like you just to think for a minute here. Can you visualize doing what Wesley's doing? Can you visualize yourself creating a land trust and the benefits of creating a land trust? I hope you can. I came up with this list last year. I found this list in a publication. I thought it was really interesting and certainly applies to us as real estate investors. This is a list of the people most likely to be sued in America today. And if you look that list over, I suspect you'll probably find you on there maybe at least once, maybe twice or more, which means your liability is greater the more times you see yourself on this list. But what's the point here? The point is that the general public perceives real estate investors as wealthy. You could own a property and it could be upside down. You could have negative cash flow. But the general public is going to think, oh, that person's rich, he owns real estate. And because of that general perception, we as real estate investors are more likely to get sued. So we have a bigger target on our back than anybody else. And that target starts at the county recorder's office, where you're buying property and deeding it in your name, where anybody on the planet can go to the county's website and look up what you own. That makes you a huge target for a lawsuit, and that's why contingency fee lawyers like to patrol the waters of the courthouse records to find their prey, because they look on the top of real estate, somebody is sued. What really is at stake here is the possibility of losing the property that you've worked so hard to buy and manage and hold on to and put your blood and your money into. You could lose that through liens, judgments, lawsuits. So that's the reason why we learn how to use the land trust. Because if all my system did for you was to save you from one lawsuit, would it be worth it? I certainly think it would. You don't want to be sitting across the table from these guys because it's expensive and very aggravating, and you lose a lot of sleep to deal with these folks. So think about this. Think about the logic behind it, and let's move on to what my system is. As I mentioned early on, I've been doing this for over 35 years. I've been using the land trust in my business for 35 years. And about 15 years ago, I was encouraged by some folks to put my knowledge together in an easy-to-understand system where other real estate investors could benefit from. And this is what I call my home study course. I've put everything together in this so you can create your own land trust, and this would allow you to save lots of time and lots of money of having to try to figure this out on your own. And I've personally found that by following a system, whatever that system is in life, whatever type of business we're talking about, But by following a system, you succeed every time you apply the system, as opposed to just willy-nilly trying to put something together that's not systemized. So let me do this, because at the end of this presentation, I'm going to make you a very special offer based on what Lance has asked me to do, and I'm going to tell you about that offer here in a minute. But I first want to break it down even further in steps as to how you are going to create your land trust. Step one is you create the trust agreement. Step two, you create that deed and trust that we talked about earlier. And step three, you record the deed and trust. That's what puts the property into trust, is the recording of that deed. Step four is my favorite step, sleep better tonight. Once you get that property out of your name, I guarantee you, you are going to sleep better at night. And you just imagine what it would feel like tonight to go to bed knowing your assets are better protected and your name's not in the county courthouse records. I tell you, it's a great, great feeling, and I encourage you all to experience that feeling. So let's break this step by step down a little bit further, because I promised to give you some real meat today, exactly how this works, and that's what I'm doing. So breaking it down a little bit further, we start with that trust agreement. We need a good document because it has to have certain verbiage in it, and that's what we provide in our home study course. That those special provisions in that document are what create the trust. You follow my instructions. In other words, I have fill-in-the-blank type instructions. As I mentioned, these are all Word documents, so you put them on your computer, you fill in the blank, and you hit print. You then have your trust agreement that the trustee signs and the beneficiary signs. And you keep that agreement for your records only. You do not record the trust agreement. Okay? So let's just do a little exercise here while everybody's on the call. You got a pen and paper there already taking notes. I'd like to ask you to just write down who might be your trustee. And this is just for the fun of it, so nothing serious here, but just write it down on a piece of paper. Is it Aunt Marge or Uncle Bill? And let me give you a hint here, because I have a whole chapter in my home study course on who should be your trustee, so I give you lots of good creative ideas. But the short version is it should be somebody who has a different last name than you, and somebody who lives out of the county in which the property is located. So if you can think of somebody right now, write that down on a piece of paper, and we'll get back to it here in a minute. Step two was to create the deed and trust. So again, you guys are familiar with Morny deeds and quitclaim deeds, and so a deed and trust is very similar to that. But it does have to contain some special provisions, which I do provide you. If you're buying directly from the seller, which is the smartest way to do and not take title in your name, the seller's going to be the grantor on the deed, and your trustee will be the grantee on the deed. It's just that simple. Grantor is the seller, grantee is the trustee. Your name as the beneficiary is not going to be anywhere on that recorded deed in trust. I hope this is making sense to you, because this all comes together in a terrific way to hold title to your investments and to teach you how to be more private in what you own and not be a target for these frivolous lawsuits. So I'm hoping it's all coming together. I hope you guys are getting this, because I'm doing my best to make it easy to understand and breaking it down. So let's break down step number 3 here again. We said that after we've created the trust agreement, after we've created the deed, we need to record the deed in the county recorder's office in the county where the property is located. Not where you live, not where the trust was created, but where the property is located is where that deed was recorded. Now, some recorders' offices will just stamp it and give it right back to you as recorded, and others will mail it to you. But one way or another, you're going to end up with that deed in your hand, and you want to keep that safely in your records. And then we get to go to step number 4, which is my favorite. We get to sleep better tonight. So I hope you guys are feeling secure about the importance of why you need to put together a land trust for each of your properties. These trusts are so valuable and so important to your real estate investment business that once you start creating, you're going to think, why did I ever sign a deed? Why did I ever put my name on a deed before? I promised to get into some benefits, and we're gonna hit 12 of them real quick here. First one, avoiding your property going through probate. If you put your property in a land trust and you die as a beneficiary, the successor beneficiary will immediately ascend to the position of beneficiary. So no probate. You don't have to wait a year or two to go through probate and pay lawyers to settle the estate and all that. Bam! As soon as you die, the successor is going to be owner of that trust and will be able to make decisions on what happens with property in that trust immediately. That's a great, great benefit. We've just gone through a lot of upheaval financially in this country over the last 6 or 8 years. And there are a lot of really good people out there that have judgments against them. They lost a business, or they lost their house, or they lost their investment property for whatever reason, and they ended up with a deficiency judgment recorded against their name. Now, if that person goes out and buys real estate and titles the property in his or her name, that judgment is going to immediately attach to the real estate. So it kind of it hamstrings, it ties their hands up, and they can't do anything with the property unless that lien is paid off out of the sale proceeds. So a great way to solve this problem is to put your property into a land trust, because judgments don't attach to property held in a land trust. Isn't that wonderful? So it does. I'm not saying you should avoid paying your liens and judgments off. I'm just saying that this is a great way for you to make profit, get back in the business, and make some profit off these deals, and then pay your liens and judgments off at your leisure, not somebody else's. It is easier to manage real estate if you have multiple owners, if you put it in a trust. Again, if you had 5 people that put together the money to buy an apartment building, and all 5 of you went on the deed, that's a nightmare, because you know it's going to be impossible to get 5 people to agree to anything. So if you use a land trust and have a beneficiaries agreement, it makes it a lot easier to manage property when you have more than one investor involved. Wholesaling and contract assignments with land trusts are made easier. Many of you are doing these kind of deals, and so some of you are actually what I call bird dogs, where you don't ever buy real estate. You just go out and negotiate deals and come up with contracts, and then sell those contracts to other real estate investors for a quick profit. And the lenders are getting a little tight on this sort of thing. They have seasoning rules now and all kinds of rules where, for example, if you make the offer today in your name and it takes 3 months to close the deal, that deal still has to be closed by you, the person who put the offer in initially. And so that prevents you from assigning your contract and making a quick profit. If you make the offer in your trust name, then you could sell the beneficial interest in the trust to another investor. He can step in and control the trust, and the offer still remains in the name of the trust all the way through to closing. So it's just a whole lot easier to do a lot of these creative deals that I know you guys are doing out there, because I do them too, and I use a trust on every one of them. I mentioned earlier, no registered agent is needed for a land trust. So you don't pay any franchise fees. The IRS looks at the land trust as a pass-through entity, so they do not require a tax return. Any of you out there possibly using doing lease option deals, buying on an option, selling on an option? Land trusts are terrific for that, because you can run into the same problems I mentioned earlier on the selling on a contract and having a foreclosure problem. If you do a lease option with a tenant, for example, even if that tenant defaults and gets kicked out on the lease, he can still come back into the court system with this option and claim he has an equitable right in your property because of the option you've given. So in comes the land trust to save the day. We sell all of our options are options to buy the beneficial interest in the land trust, not the real estate. Then if they default, we're back to the position of they were buying personal property on a contract, not real estate. And so from a legal standpoint, they don't have near as many rights to come and jack us around like some of these people will do. And the real professional tenants that cause all the trouble in the world will not only jack you around for a year in foreclosure or in the court system trying to exercise an option, but the day before it's resolved, they'll declare bankruptcy and buy another 6 months of time. So it's really a risky thing to do, and using the land trust takes the risk out of selling on a contract and lease optioning on a contract. Protection against unhappy tenants. This is really very practical use for a land trust, and I can give you some everyday, real-life examples. I had last year, I've got some condos in the development, and last summer, we were having lots of calls for the police department to come out. And when I investigated what was going on, at the heart of every problem and every police call was one of my tenants. No matter who else was involved, she was always involved. So I determined that she was a troublemaker, and when her lease came up to be renewed, I did not renew it. I told her that the owner didn't want to renew a lease, and that was that. And since I'm not the owner, she really can't argue with me. So it really puts you in a much better position to negotiate and discuss things with tenants when you are just a manager as opposed to if you're the owner. So we did not renew this lady's lease, and about 3 days later I got a call from my attorney's secretary who said, hey, there's a lady down here in my lobby raising heck wanting to speak to the owner of the property she lives in. Well, what had she done? She had looked up online who the owner of the property was. And it just so happened to have been when I bought that property, I had initially put the property in my attorney's name to close the deal. Now, I had subsequently changed the name of the owner, but that initial owner stays in the courthouse records. That's a real good point to think about. So she had looked up in the phone book the attorney's name, found his business address, and marched down to his office and wanted to discuss why she wasn't getting released. And they said, what do you want us to do, Randy? And I said, throw her out. And if she won't leave voluntarily, call the police. She has no right to talk to you. This is what some tenants will do. They will go to extremes, especially if you are evicting a tenant. And you certainly don't want that tenant to show up at your door by researching and looking up your name on the title and showing up your door when your kids answer the door, and you got an irate tenant there ready to do battle. Another quick example, I had a lady call me last year from Florida. She said, I I need to get your home study for us, Randy, right away, the fastest I can. And I said, well, wait, slow down. What's the hurry? She said, I own 7 rental properties down here in Florida, plus my own personal residence. And one of the tenants that I rent to is a man, and he's interested in me, and I'm not interested in him. And he's stalking me. He's trying to find out where I live, and he's going to each property that he's looking up online that's in my name and going to that property looking for me. And I said, wow, that's something that would never have occurred to me. I suppose because I'm a man, but it would never occur to me that the use of the land trust would prevent stalking by a tenant, but it does. And I can give you example after example how this really works in real day, rubber meets the road, life on the street in our business. Let's move on here. Reason number 9, avoiding the due on sale clause. Many of you are wanting to sell on a contract so you can make higher profits, but you're worried about the underlying loan being called due. And if you use a land trust, it avoids the due on sale clause. It's a non-recorded transaction, and the lender never knows about it. Believe it or not, this is another very interesting benefit to using a land trust, and that is that it helps you avoid ID theft. When you think about it, the ID thieves these days have the ability to go online and look up deeds and mortgages, and they can put your signature right off of those documents. And now they know where you live, and they have your signature. So it's not too much more effort for them to steal your identity and wreck your life. I don't know if any of you have ever had that happen to you, but it's a nightmare, and you certainly do not want to go through an ID theft situation. This is what I was talking about earlier, number 11. If you sell on the contract, you're selling the beneficial interest in a land trust. That is personal property. So if the buyer defaults, it takes you about 30 days to get him out of the property instead of a year or more, because you are repossessing that interest in the trust. You are not foreclosing on the real estate. So think about this. This is really an interesting concept. From a tax standpoint, you do own the property. You do get all the benefits of depreciation and deducting the interest and all the benefits of ownership. But from a legal standpoint, you don't own the real estate. Your trustee and your trust owns it. So this is just, I hope you guys are getting this. This is really great stuff. And I encourage you to learn this information and do it yourself. And once you do this, once you do your first trust, you are just going to be so happy you did it, because it will totally transfer your business into a whole different line of business, much safer, much more fun, and like I said, you're going to sleep better at night. Number 12, naming your trust. This is really, really cool stuff, because what's fun about a land trust is there's no national registry for a land trust. Like when you form a corporation or LLC, you got to go to the state website and look it up and see if the name you want is already taken. Don't have to do that with a land trust. You name it whatever you want to, as long as you don't infringe on copyright laws, somebody else's copyright. But you can name your trust the East Coast, West Coast Investment Fund Trust, or the Florida State Retirement Fund Trust, or the California Big Real Estate Investors Trust. So you can have a lot of fun, but not only is it important to have fun here, but the point is I want to create a name for my trust that sounds like it belongs to a big company that has a legal department that might just be interested in suing back if somebody hits them with a frivolous lawsuit. Because if you just name your trust after the street name of the property you put in the trust, or your Aunt Tilly's name, or just the Randy Hughes Land Trust, that really wouldn't be very intimidating. with it. Let me give you a real life example on this too. Last fall, I rented a house to a young lady, and I always have the tenants come in and sit down with me in my conference room, and I go over the lease for an hour explaining the lease and what the terms of the lease are. Well, when she came into my office, behind her came trotting along her father, who was an attorney. So we all sat down at the conference table, and I started to go through the lease. And what was really interesting about this was the very first paragraph of my lease, and probably your lease the same way, it states who the owner is and who the tenant is. And I named this particular trust for this particular property after the richest people in my town. So let's say that the rich people in my town were named Smith. So I named the trust the Smith Family Land Trust. And when we got to just the name on who the owner of this property was, I saw that man, the attorney, I saw his face just change. Because when he came in, loaded for bear, he's going to shoot down all aspects of my lease until he realizes, at least he thought he realized, that this trust is owned by the richest people in town. I mean, these people have hundreds of millions of dollars. Do you really want to take on somebody that's got hundreds of millions of dollars in court? Probably not. So you can see the value of being able to be creative in naming your trust. So let's take this pointed finger and write down. We wrote down earlier who might be your trustee. Why don't you write down now who will be your beneficiary? Which is probably you, or maybe you already own an LLC. But write that down on the same piece of paper. I just want to give you an example of how easy it is to create these trusts. What is at stake here, as I mentioned earlier, is your family, your family's future, your financial future is certain, college fund, new house, new car, all that is predicated on the assumption that you're going to end up with the assets that you think you're going to end up with, and that you're going to be able to benefit from these assets as you're going through life. And that's not necessarily so if you keep buying this stuff in your name, because eventually it's going to catch up to you. And you know, it's very hard for me to communicate to you on a call like this, because if I had the time to spend even 2 hours worth of stories, it would really hit home with you. So I've just tried to give you some stories, but it's take it from somebody who's been doing this for 40 years. It's very, very important for you to learn how to protect your assets. Nobody else is going to protect your assets like you are. You go to a lawyer or an asset protection specialist, and they may help you, but they're not going to look at your situation like you are, and not going to take it as seriously as you are. So I hope, again, that you guys are soaking this in and getting the point of my product here, and that is to protect your hard-earned assets. I mean, think of it this way. Think of how impressed your family would be if you learned how to protect the family assets, and you went back to your family tomorrow and said, I acquired this system that's going to teach me how to protect our assets going forward. And then, you know, from another angle here is, who would you really rather learn from? You want to learn from some ivory tower professor, or a streetwise investor like yourself and like me? That's why I wrote this home study course in easy to understand language. And I put together this system that's been proven over the last 35 years. It is easy to create and creates peace of mind for you and your family, and has built-in asset protection as you go along. And the most important thing, as I mentioned earlier, is it doesn't cost you anything for a land trust. So you can create, 10, 20, 100, however many you want to, and not have any continuing expense to creating these trusts. You don't have to search around for information. I put it all together for you in an easy-to-understand format. And as my real estate investing friends, I can assure you that this is easy to follow and easy to create, not only your first, but all your subsequent land trusts that you want to be creating once you learn how to do this. Let me just mention this. This lady, her name is Teresa. She's out of Florida, who took my live class, and she had a problem with real estate. And after she took my class, she said this, that she felt like she could then, now, after learning this information, go out and protect her investments and her family. And she is using my home study course as we speak. And that's how easy it is to learn how to create your own land trust. You can feel confident too, because once you learn this, you're going to be creating your own land trust, and I'm going to give you support. So, what kind of support? Well, let's get into that. My home study course is 100 pages long, so it's not real long, it's in fairly big print. And it's easy to understand language, as I mentioned, so you can get all the forms, a hard copy, and you get them in a soft version, Word format of all the forms. You also get in my home study course a copy of my seminar that I had a DVD shot of me teaching the actual class, going through the materials page by page, and answering all the questions of the students in the class, covering all the information. And then I threw in, also in this home study course, an audio CD so you can listen to the seminar as you're driving down the road in your car. As another way to pound the information into your head and review the information that you've seen on the DVD. My DVD makes learning how to create your own land trust very easy. This is the last person that I'll bring up. I promise. But I thought you'd like to see what she has to say. This is a lady out of California. Her name's Iris, and she owns a very large real estate plot in the LA area. And she studied my system and now only buys real estate in a land trust. As you can see, she was very impressed with my materials, and now she recommends me to all of her students and all her members of her club out there in LA. Okay, what do you get in the way of forms? Let's review that. You get the trust agreement, you get the deed, all the management forms you'll ever need in case you want to change the trust down the road. And that's all provided to you on one convenient CD. So let's summarize here. There's the total value. And here's my philosophy again. I can't drive this home enough to you. We all hit bumps in the road in life, and as real estate investors, we hit more bumps than anybody else because we're more of a target. So please consider getting this home study course to help you smooth out those bumps. You add all that up, all the value of everything I mentioned earlier, it's $1,944, but Lance asked me to give you guys a killer deal. He said, Randy, if you're going to deal with my folks, I want you to discount this, make it so valuable and so inexpensive that everybody can get a copy. So I hope you're ready to get started now, and I hope that you're glad that you listened to this presentation, because I do give you a 100% money-back guarantee. If you get my course and it's not what I told you it was, You just send it back to me within 30 days, and you get a 100% money back guarantee from me. So, you know, if all this system did was show you how to produce your first trust quickly, easily, and save you money while doing it, would it be worth it? If you just did one trust, and you know you're going to probably do a whole bunch more, but just one trust for $525 would be well worth it. I want to throw in a couple of bonuses, though, because Lance and I have been business associates for quite a while. I know him and respect him and all the people that follow what he teaches, and so I want to throw in some extra little bonuses that I thought might just make it just irresistible to all of you. I am the only guy on the planet writing a land trust newsletter. So, if you purchase this home study course today, I will give you a one-year membership in that newsletter. That means you'll get my newsletter for free for 1 year. I've also arranged for a special one-on-one session. He sets up corporations and LLCs for people all over the United States. You can meet with him at no cost initially. He'll discuss your situation. If you want to use him, fine. If you don't, that's all right. But it's there for free as an extra bonus for you. So now, if we add all this together and throw in my last killer deal here, guys, if you buy in the next 30 minutes, you're going to receive your free Lance Edwards bonus, which is a membership in my Land Trust University, which provides personal coaching by me. That's $297 a year. If you go to my website right now, it costs $297 just for that Land Trust University membership. If you buy in the next 30 minutes, I will give you a 1-year membership for free. So you'll get my newsletter, you'll get my personal coaching, you get all the state laws that I put together, all 50 state laws come along with that Land Trust University membership, several other bonus publications. So I think you're going to really like that information. So again, that's a big total, but we're going to knock it down to $525 today. Buy in the next 30 minutes, and you're going to get all that extra information in the Land Trust University membership. So how do you do this? You need to go to this website, apartmentwealthmachine.com/Randy, and you can get your copy right now. And so while I leave this up on the screen, I'm going to ask Lance if he wants to come back on and maybe read some questions from some of you that have been coming in while I've been speaking.
All right, Randy. Hey, great job. Great job. I'm sitting there taking a bunch of notes, and it always amazes me all the ways that you have to apply these land trusts to not only protect your privacy, but to make more money on these deals. And just really great. So right now, what you can do is take advantage of this webinar special. Go to www.apartmentwealthmachine.com/Randy, apartmentwealthmachine.com/Randy, and take advantage of that offer he just made for the benefit of you, my subscribers. And while you're doing that, I also open it up for some questions. We got D-Man, Mr. Land Trust, online right now. Here's your opportunity to get your question answered. So send me a question right now. I'm going to convey it over to Randy, and get you guys started here. By the way, when you go to that page, you're going to see I'm also giving you a finance option. Nothing I'm doing on your behalf. So I want you to get this system that Randy was talking about in your hands. He showed you all the ways you need to be using it in your in your deals. It's absolutely indispensable also, and you can use it in your deals today. So go to the webpage and see that I'm also giving you a finance option there as well. Let's see, we got some questions coming in here, Randy. Let's
All right.
Here's a question from Ben. Hey, Ben. Ben asks, is it possible to use a Roth IRA as a beneficiary?
Yes, it certainly is, Ben. However, I would be a little bit careful about how I structured that, because when you put your property in a land trust, it doesn't mean you don't have liability anymore. And assuming it's investment property, it does have more liability than personal residence. So let's say you got a 15-unit apartment building. You put it in a land trust, the liability on that building flows through to the beneficiary. And so that's why most real estate investors will make the beneficiary an LLC or corporation to get the asset protection benefit. And then if you wanted the LLC, for example, one of the members of the LLC or a 100% member of the LLC would be your Roth IRA, that would give you the structure you're looking for and the asset protection at the same time.
All right, excellent, excellent. Thank you for the question, Ben. Thank you for the answer, Randy. Let's see. I've got another one here from Stu. Hey, Stu. And Randy, Stu asks, if the property is in an LLC, can you transfer the LLC into a land trust?
Yes, and quite often investors will do that. Once they learn the benefits of these land trusts, they sit back and look at their situation and they say, uh-oh, I've got an LLC here with 10 properties in it. That is the nexus for a lawsuit. So what you do is that deed and trust that we talked about earlier, you do a deed and trust for each property that's in your LLC, deed it out of the LLC to your land trust. So you have 10 separate land trusts, you have 10 deeds, you deed properties out of the LLC to 10 separate land trusts, and then you make the beneficiary of each of those trusts the LLC. So you just take it out of one pocket and put it in another.
Neat. Okay. So everyone, if you have an LLC right now, if you own real estate in an LLC, Randy explained exactly how you can transfer the ownership of the LLC to the land trust, where now the LLC is the beneficiary of the land trust. Is that correct, Randy?
That is correct.
All right. Great question, Stu. Thank you for that. Let's see. We've got a question from Serena. Hey, Serena. Serena asks, can I put my home into a land trust if it is already mortgaged?
Yes, Serena, you can, because you got to think of it this way. There's a difference between the title of the property and the debt on the property. So, for example, good old Lance, as much as he likes me, he could buy a piece of real estate and pay for it, but put the title in my name. So he'd be making the mortgage payments, but I technically own the property. So there's two things going on when you buy real estate. One is who owns it, and the other is who's paying for it. And so just because you have a debt on it now doesn't mean you can't transfer it out of your name and into the trust. So, and I give you all these scenarios in the homesteading course, and I think it is the best land trust course in America today. And it better be, since I call myself Mr. Land Trust, I better put together a pretty good product if I got the nerve to call myself Mr. Land Trust. So, and I assure you it is a great product and will answer all your questions. But let's address a few more here, Lance.
All right, very good. By the way, I think you need, given all your teaching at all these universities, on top of everything you're doing out on the front lines. I think it's no longer Mr. Land Trust. It's Dr. Land Trust.
Dr. Land Trust. That's a great idea. I'll have to amend that.
All right. Okay. Thank you for that question, Serena. We've got. All right. Here's a question from Rothman. With a land trust, who pays the tax? Who pays the tax?
I assume he's talking about the real estate taxes, and the beneficiary pays. See, the trustee of a land trust typically doesn't do anything other than hold title to the property. And here's a good way to think about this. There are all the other trusts in the world, and then there's the land trust. And all the other trusts in the world are what I call trustee-driven. That means the trustee makes the decisions on what happens to the property in the trust. They may insure the property, they may collect rents, make the decision on where the distributions go. That's not the case with the land trust. The land trust is beneficiary-driven. The beneficiary calls the shots. They collect the rents and the money, or a property manager does, but the trustee, I don't want my trustees to do anything other than hold title. I don't want them to touch my money. I don't want them to be responsible for insuring the property. They just sit in the corner and stare at the corner and hold title until I need them to come out of the corner of the room and sign a deed someday when I'm selling the property.
All right. So, hey, by the way, guys, if you haven't yet taken advantage of this webinar special offer, go to the website, apartmentwealthmachine.com/Randy, apartmentwealthmachine.com/Randy. On there, you'll see everything you're going to be getting. Randy's included a bonus, so as you act right now, the action takers, and I've included, as a webinar special, also a finance option for you, so you can get in on a payment plan. And because once you get your hands on this system that Dr. Land Trust has now put together, and based upon experience since, if you recall, 1969, and lots of houses, lots of transactions, and been empowering and teaching students across the country for decades now. So take advantage of that system, and that's webinar special right now. All right, we have some more questions coming in. Randy, you have some more questions?
Sure am. I love talking about land trust.
All right. Here's one from JW. Hey, JW. JW asks, if you are selling or leasing property, who signs all the documents?
Good question, JW. If you're selling property that's held in a land trust, the owner signs. Who's the owner? The trustee. So the trustee will sign the listing agreement with multiple listing if you're doing it that way, or the sales contract. The trustee will sign the seller disclosure, the termite report, the closing statement, anything that the owner would sign would be signed by the trustee. And in my home study course, I break down, I go through, I have a chapter on how do you do this when you're buying real estate, and then how do you do it when you're selling real estate. But effectively, just think of that trustee as the owner, and anything the owner would typically do, he signs. Having said that, though, I want you to understand that trustee does not have any personal liability when he signs things. So, if you're having a friend or a relative serve as your trustee, he has no personal liability as your trustee.
All right, very good. Let's see, we've got another question that came in here. A lot of good questions. Some of them I'm going through. Some of them we've answered already. By the way, guys, thanks for these great questions. Here's one. Okay, that was answer JW's question. All right, here's one from Robert. Hey, Robert. And Robert's asking, can you clarify the participants, especially why you should use another person in another county and a different name?
Yes, Robert, I just had a call from a student yesterday. He said, can I be my own trustee? and beneficiary. And I said, well, no, you can't, and furthermore, you wouldn't want to. I mean, the whole purpose of the land trust is anonymity, privacy of ownership. And if you put your name on there as the trustee and you're the beneficiary, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Furthermore, there's a principle under the law called merging of interests, and that says that if you're the trustee and the beneficiary, then you're everything, and you don't have a trust. You can't have a trust with yourself. There has to be a second party involved. Now, you can hire professional trustees. Chicago Title has a trustee department. Your local bank may have a trustee department. And I can refer you to professional trustees that will charge you. I have them all over the United States, but if you have difficulty finding somebody or trusting somebody, you can use a professional trustee, but they will charge you. I like to use individuals that I know, I've known for 20 years. Perhaps they are a relative of mine or a business associate that I've done business with for the last 20 or 30 years that I know and trust, and I know their character. I like to use those people as my trustees. And the reason why I want them out of the county in which the property is located is because to sue a trust, you have to serve the trustee. And so if you make it easy to serve the trustee, you make it easy to get sued. If you make it hard to serve the trustee, you make it hard to get sued. Because a lawsuit doesn't go anywhere until somebody is served. And so I actually like it, and you get into this, if you read my material, you'll get into the fact that I like to use other states to form my land trust. You see, there's no federal land trust law. It's all state by state. And I live in Illinois. All my investment properties in Illinois, but I don't use Illinois land trust. I use Virginia land trust. And I explain that in detail in the course material, why that's a great, great benefit to use an out-of-state entity to own property in your state. So we're really getting into the nuts and bolts here, JW. Thanks for that question. That's a great question. And again, if I'm leaving you wanting there, it's only because I explain it in greater detail in that home study course. And I'll just say this. There's probably 50% of you listening on this call right now that are going to end up getting this home study course because you're going to realize how important protecting your assets are and how important it is to your family's future to protect these assets. So let's have another question. Thanks.
All right, very good. Thank you for that. And that was Robert. Thank you for that question, Robert.
Robert.
One, we have a Canadian viewer. This is Steve. Hey, Steve. And Steve says, hi, I'm a Canadian buying real estate in the U.S. Any problems with that?
And there can be some problems from a tax standpoint, and I would advise you to talk to your tax accountant. There's no problem with you using a land trust. In fact, I've got a student up in Vancouver right now that I've been communicating back and forth with. She's been buying property in Florida. So no problem using land trust to buy your property in the United States. I think it's a great way to do it, to keep your information out of the public records. But I would ask you to talk to your tax accountant to make sure that you won't have any tax surprises on the income generated off investment property. And that's going to apply whether you use a trust or not. But just for a matter of course, check with your tax reference the income from the property.